In the heart of the war, my world was a canvas of red and white. Red for the wounded, and white for the bandages that tried to hold them together. I was a nurse, sworn to men, but the rules were brutally clear. We men did our own. The enemy was just that, the enemy. But in the quiet corners of my conscience, another oath echoed, one I made not to a flag, but to life itself, an oath to heal without distinction. This is the story of a single night when those two duties collided, a night that rendered the lines I thought were etched so clearly in the sand. The field hospital was a constant symphony of suffering. The air, so thick with the smell of antiseptic and fear, clung to you like a second skin. Every corner was filled with the groans of the brave, the hurried footsteps of doctors, and the quiet sobs of those who knew their war was over, one way or another. We worked under dim, flickering lights, our hands moving with a practiced urgency that hid the exhaustion carved into our faces. We were a dam trying to hold back notion of pain, and every single day, the cracks grew wider. The wounded arrived in endless waves, boys who looked too young to even shave, now aged into men by fire and shrapnel. My job was to be a beacon in that storm, a steady hand, a calm voice. But inside, I felt the storm raging too. And then, he came. He wasn't carried in by our medics or announced by the rumble of an ambulance. He simply appeared at the torn flap of the supply tent, like a ghost in the twilight. He wore no uniform, just tattered civilian clothes soaked through with rain and blood. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a mixture of pain and terror that I recognized instantly. It's a universal language on the battlefield. Before he could even utter a single word, he collapsed. My training took over immediately. I knelt beside him, my fingers searching for the weak, thready pulse at his neck. It was there, but faint. As I gently tore away the blood-soaked fabric from his side, I saw the wound a deep gash, angry and already showing signs of infection. But it was something else that made my blood run cold. Underneath the dirt and grime, peeking from the collar of his simple shirt, was a small, tarnished insignia. The enemy, my mind raced. Every regulation, every order, every piece of propaganda screamed at me. This man, this boy, was the reason our own soldiers were lying in the main tent, fighting for their lives. Helping him was treason. It could mean a court-martial, prison, or even worse. The hospital was already overflowing. We barely had enough supplies for our own men. Every piece of gauze, every single drop of morphine I used on him would be one less for an alive soldier. I could just turn him in. I could walk away and let fate decide. That was the right thing to do. The safe thing, but then I looked at his face. He was no older than my own brother back home. The fear in his eyes wasn't the look of a hardened soldier. It was the look of a dying boy, terrified and far from home. In that moment, he wasn't the enemy. He wasn't a uniform or a flag. He was just a human being, bleeding and broken, washed ashore by the violent tides of war. And I was a nurse. My oath to preserve life made no mention of nationality. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear and resolve. And right there, in the shadows, I made a choice. It was a silent rebellion, a quiet act of defiance against the madness that surrounded us all. With a strength I didn't know I possessed, I helped him deeper into the shadows of the supply tent, away from any prying eyes. My hands trembled as I cleaned the wound, and the sting of the antiseptic made him hiss in pain. I gave him water, and he drank like a man who had just crossed a day in the Sahara Desert. I didn't have any anesthetic to spare, so I just held his hand, whispering soothing words I wasn't even sure he could understand. "It's all right," I said softly. "You're safe now. Just hold on." For hours, I worked in near darkness, my only light a sliver of moon filtering through a tear in the canvas. Every sound from outside a shout, a passing vehicle sent a jolt of pure terror through me. I was a traitor in my own camp, harboring the one thing I was supposed to destroy. Yet, as I stitched his skin back together, needle and thread moving slowly but surely, I felt a profound, unshakable sense of purpose. This was my war, fought not with a gun, but with a needle and thread. I must have drifted off at some point, slumped against a crate, utterly spent. When I awoke, the first light of dawn was painting the sky in soft shades of gray and pink. The tent was still. I looked over to where he had been lying. He was gone. The makeshift bed was empty. For a wild moment, I thought I had dreamed the entire thing. But then I saw it. The blood-stained rags were gone, and on the folded blanket where his head had rested lay a small, tarnished metal button from a uniform I did not recognize. It was the only proof that he had ever been there. He had vanished as silently as he had arrived, leaving no trace but a small token and a profound silence in his wake. I never knew his name, his story, or if he even survived the war. I never saw him again. I think about that night often. In the grand, bloody history of the war, my secret was less than a footnote. It was an act unseen, a kindness that would never be recorded or rewarded. Did it change the course of the war? Of course not, but it changed me. It taught me that humanity isn't a flag you wear, but a light you carry inside you. It can flicker, it can dim in the face of hatred and fear, but it can also be a beacon in the darkest of nights. That one small act of defiance reminded me that even when the world commands you to hate, the most powerful rebellion can be a simple act of compassion. I kept that button. All these years, it has served as a quiet reminder. A reminder that sometimes the most important battles are the ones we fight within ourselves. And the most significant victories are the ones that no one else will ever see. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you in any way, please consider sharing it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Stay safe and be kind.